Guys who married Bridezillas, what happened after the wedding? First wife was a Bridezilla. During the honeymoon she realized she was married, and the wedding day was history. She wanted the big wedding, which she had, not the marriage. The next 2 years were hell, until she finally tapped out. I was young and stupid and the thought of divorce never crossed my mind. I don't know why it didn't. I guess I just assumed I'd be miserable the rest of my life. When she told me she was leaving, it felt as if the weight of the world was off of my shoulders. On a happy note, her parents were still paying off the wedding when we divorced. That's what happens when you allow your daughter everything she wanted, including 2 wedding dresses. Not a Bridezilla, but a Millzilla. Wife wanted a regular sized wedding, nothing fancy, at a historic venue she loved. We had planned for about 100 guests at most, and we would do a lot of the work. Mill started to pressure about having to invite tons of people, in-laws are loaded and social butterflies, change the venue, change the photographer, etc. I didn't give a shit, since it was all to make my wife happy, and did my best to adjust. Finally one day about 2 months before the wedding my wife had a breakdown crying because of all the changes and bullshit from Mill. I didn't marry the Bridezilla, but I had coordinated her wedding. We had a death in the family, 6-month-old baby, a few days prior to the wedding. I called the bride and told her the situation and said that my assistant would be stepping in for me so that I could attend the funeral. She told me to send my assistant to the funeral and that I had better be at her wedding. I told her I would be sending her a refund and that no one would be coming to her wedding. The groom ended up leaving her after this whole thing went down. Suffice to say he really dodged a bullet there. I have performed a few ceremonies that came about because things fell through for whatever reason, only one of which I had to walk away from. I had received a call from my sil that one of her friends was supposed to get married and the priest had passed away the week before. They didn't want to change the date and move anything, so they had asked if she knew anyone who could help out. I said sure. When is the wedding? It was supposed to be in an hour. Okay, I was on my way home from work, where I had finished up an important meeting. I miss meeting in person, and was reasonably well dressed, so I called home to say I was going to be late. When I arrived, the happy couple had looked at me and asked if I had proper priest's vestments. No, I don't, and if I did, I would probably not be carrying them in my car. The bride had asked if I was able to go buy some and come back. I told her that I wouldn't begin to know where to buy something like that. The groom then told me that if I can't even try, then maybe I should leave. I did. My sil told me they cornered a priest at the church and told him he had to marry them or they would sue the church for a breach of contract and that it was the moral thing to do. They divorced 9 months later when her surprise baby was a different ethnicity than he was. Didn't help that he had a side piece as well. I'm a bride-to-be, and the way people are encouraging some Bridezilla behavior from me is something I never expected. I got incredibly lucky and found the exact wedding dress I wanted at Goodwill in my size with the tags on. And people are like SHHH, don't tell people. Tell them you got it for $1,000. Brag about how much you got it for. Yeah, no, I'm more proud that I found it thrifting. Also for brides on a budget, this is where I found mine. Lots of great affordable options. https://www.shopgoodwill.com/wedding. My mom was a mother of the Bridezilla. She's an alright lady generally, with her annoying habits here and there, but damn. Woman cried because we refused to have a receiving line. We got married in our backyard. The reception was on the other side of the yard. Why the shit would we have a receiving line? She was beside herself for the better part of an entire year worrying what we would do if it rained. We had a giant tent and ordered like 20 umbrellas. She also had a cow that the hem on her dress had gotten pulled loose by the ridiculous rhinestone stilettos she chose to wear to a wedding in a yard on grass. I told my ma to get her some duct tape and my mother, again, cried her eyes out. To this day she complains about the fabric runner we used for the aisle because her heels dug into it, saying how silly of a choice that was. Everyone in the wedding party was aware of it and wore wedges or flats, but she snorted that wasn't elegant. She loathed that I wore ballet flats. She was also appalled that for our rehearsal dinner, which was at our home, since that's where our wedding was, consisted of takeaway from our favorite local pizza and sandwich place, and the rehearsal itself was all of 10 minutes. She decried it for being borderline trashy. Thankfully, following the ceremony, my brother gave her a joint and all was well and happy for the party thereafter. A bit of a change up, not a Bridezilla, but a Groomzilla. A friend of my father was remarrying. It was both his and the bride's second time around, both in their early 40s, and an arranged marriage. Think Indian Orthodox Muslim stuff. The guy was an utter Groomzilla. He demanded that every event be at top-notch hotels with obscenely expensive catering, and hired string quartets and whatnot for the entertainment. Mostly paid out of the bride's family's pocket, I might add. The parties on the nights leading up to the main wedding event were opportunity enough for him to make a rather public ass of himself, talking at the top of his voice and showboating the entire time. But the kicker came the next day, when the bride was missing from her own wedding's reception. Obviously it was very odd and conspicuous, and the few relatives from her side made some non-committal excuses about her not feeling well, etc. Turns out, this fucker had divorced the poor woman right after he'd had his wedding night fun. He said that he didn't like her enough, and that's an almost literal quote. So he gave her the triple divorce thing, and that was it. The marriage was officially over before the festivities even ended. My cousin was married to one. He comes from a very not wealthy area and has become successful himself after moving out of his hometown. His wife was extremely wealthy, even could say excessively. They married after a year of knowing each other, and boy was it a surprise to hear about the wedding plans. They spent plus $250k on the wedding, including catering by 5 to 7 different restaurants. Their food was from different cultures and cooked in front of you. Think almost hibachi buffet style. They even had servers in tailed suits and white gloves serving Taco Bell after midnight once everyone was drunk. Once they got married, she was spending more money than he could make. She was getting mad because he wasn't making enough while she wasn't working, and they hadn't had kids. They got divorced, and she gave him the ultimatum of getting his ring back or keeping the dog. He kept the dog. Her sister, a lawyer, helped her file a restraining order on him, and they haven't spoken since. *CK her, but man did he dodge a bullet. Edit. I forgot to say they finished the divorce papers exactly 1 year and 1 day after their wedding. Edit 2. I never expected my first award would be the famous wholesome. Cheers. I married a Groomzilla. Bent over backwards to make the wedding as magical as he wanted. I would have been happy in someone's backyard with a potluck. He admitted in couples counseling 7 years later that he never really wanted to marry me so much as he wanted a huge show and party. Everyone liked and approved of me, so he wanted them all to see he was making a good choice and be envious. He wanted them to be proud of him. We used up most of the money I got from a car accident settlement. Could have put in a down payment in a small house. He asked for divorce in 2020. My sister was labeled a Bridezilla by the staff at her venue. I heard them. However, the chair coverings were red, supposed to be brown. There was no mirror in the bridal suite for her to get ready at. The photographer was late. The makeup artist was very late. Hence the issue with the mirror. The buffet was totally wrong. Not a single dish she chose, and they charged $25 a person for what was to be a 4-tiered chocolate fountain, but ended up being a small plastic contraption that she saw them unboxing from Walgreens the day of. It's a convenience store. On top of it all, the wait staff was 1/2 the number the contract stated, and the DJ refused to honor the playlist selected. So, yeah, she lost it at the venue. My brother's fiancé went off on my mom in front of me and my sister when he was 45 minutes late to the rehearsal due to his best man's car tire blowing out. Where is your asshole of a son? Dude should have never showed up for the wedding. Not only a Bridezilla, but a total utter sociopath. Her life was completely fabricated, and her parents, who didn't show up for the wedding, called my mom to tell her the truth about it the day after. She had a rap sheet a mile long and a prison record. But my brother, who just wanted to believe that people can change, stuck it out for 7 years. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. My brother married a Bridezilla. She yelled at my mother the day of for asking her where she wanted certain decorations at the reception site. There wasn't a written plan, so my mom had nothing to go off of. Never thanked my parents for financially contributing to the wedding. Accused a bridesmaid of trying to upstage her by getting a spray tan before the wedding. My brother wanted me to be in the wedding party, but she told him to his face that I was too pretty to be in the wedding party and all of her bridesmaids had to be less attractive than her. Stole my silk jacket in the middle of the reception, literally took it off her back because one of the bridesmaids was cold. It was a night reception in the spring. The girl shoulder brought a jacket. The list goes on. Well, they got divorced about a year later because apparently her demanding attitude carried over into the marriage. Needless to say, the rest of my family had a little party when we heard about the divorce. Married a Groomzilla. We are talking costume changes between wedding and reception, yelling at the wedding planner, drag out all night fights about whether we can add fruit kebabs so people would maybe get enough to eat, all that. There was zero compromise. He made a lot of promises for things I had been wanting after the wedding and they never materialized, like a beach vacation and such. Turns out, no compromise at the wedding meant no compromise anywhere else, so I left him after 4 years of marriage. Best decision ever. Not a guy, but I'm pretty sure my venue thinks I'm a Bridezilla. The situation was that I asked for a second tasting. I was calm and asked via email. Even had my fiance read it before sending. The reason? I told them I'm a vegetarian several times prior, and when I got to the first tasting I couldn't eat anything, and they even put bacon on the salad they served me. We also asked for absolutely no bacon/pig, because we had quite a few people coming who didn't eat it for religious reasons. My fiance had like 7 full-sized dishes around him, and I was just sitting there with a glass of wine for over an hour. They were very rude and treated me like a Bridezilla when I came for the second tasting. My sister was a Bridezilla. She announced a 2-year engagement and asked me to be mom. Then I got the opportunity to move across the country to pursue my career. It was 18 months before her wedding, and her reaction to the news was, "You're going to leave me here to plan my wedding all by myself?" Like I had signed away my right to have a life for the honor of being in her wedding. She made us all spend hundreds of dollars on specialized dresses. The bachelorette party had a dress code and a steep price tag. For 10 years before her engagement I had consistently had blue/green/purple hair, but knowing she is conservative I'll let the color grow out. I had natural color but a short bob with undercut that she went on about. In the lead up we talked every few days to discuss her wedding. It was the closest we'd ever been. And then as soon as she was married I got radio silence, and she even forgot my birthday. Needless to say we don't speak anymore, so I have no idea how her marriage is going. I'm a wedding officiant who has married over 300 couples. I know, wrong kind of married, only a few Bridezillas in there, and they're actually super easy for me to work with. They write their own ceremony, don't depend on me to run the rehearsal, and they don't try to dick me down on the price. Mothazillas of the bride, on the other hand, are my worst fear, as they can quickly make my job miserable. If they're failing to get their way on interfering with their daughter's wedding, they'll try to use me as a proxy. Edit, grammar and spelling. My GF of 10 years is very down to earth and level headed. We finally decided to get married later this year for a few reasons, and she's feeling a lot of phantom pressure to do things a certain way. It's not like there is an overbearing mom or catty friends applying pressure or expectations. It's just the whole idea is overwhelming and filled to the brim with opportunities to make a decision you might end up regretting later, or further. I've taken a more active role in narrowing down options instead of asking her to pick a perfect solution out of 5 million possible options. It's helped somewhat, but there is still a lot of pressure on her, seemingly out of nowhere, to make a series of decisions that all depend upon the first few big decisions that are weighing heavily on her/us. All this to say, I can see how this kind of stuff could turn a normal woman into a lunatic. These types of events tend to bring latent family and friend drama to the forefront, and emotions are high before shit even really gets started. My guess is that a lot of the Bridezillas were actually lovely people who calmed down and returned to being lovely people after the stress of the wedding stuff is removed. Not married, but I ended a friendship with a Bridezilla who desperately wanted me to attend her wedding. She had it scheduled for the weekend of the eclipse in 2017. Something I had planned for 10 years. She asked me what my plan was, and I said that I'm flying to the Missouri/Kentucky area. She wanted me to fly to Idaho where she lived. I rolled, but all flights, hotels, and rental cars in Idaho and Utah were completely booked out. I couldn't get there, even if I wanted to. She said I didn't care about her or her wedding, and that I didn't want to see her on her big day. She claimed I put the eclipse, something I had planned on seeing for 10 years, before her Lenny, someone I knew for 6 months. So I ended things really fast after that. But from what I see, she still posts photos of her wedding to this day. Like every day she posts different wedding photos. It's almost like she stopped living after her wedding. My uncle married one. She had a spending problem, went clubbing in her 40s thinking she was 20, acted like she was better than everyone, couldn't keep friendships, and she cheated on my uncle with a man 10 to 15 years her junior. My uncle is remarried and happy. Edit. Sorry not to imply there's something wrong with going clubbing at all. More so that she abandoned her day-to-day priorities in order to focus on clubbing as a lifestyle. I.e. clubbing almost every single weekend, both Friday, Saturday, rather than finding time to spend time with kids at home. Getting drunk and needing to sleep over friends' house who may not be comfortable with staying out that late. Getting mad at said friends because they don't wanna go clubbing. The issue was less about liking clubs, but more about the obsession that many don't have. That's why I added acting like she's 20. If you're childless, have little responsibilities, and have friends who enjoy that thing, go for it. But at 40ish, there's a bit of prioritizing, and it starts to become difficult. Been married 14 years. She's definitely a pain in the ass sometimes, but so is everyone else. I'm also pretty laid back, so a lot of decisions I leave to her, because I just don't care. If it's a decision I do care about, I make the decision. Without her, I wouldn't have the 3 best kids on earth. She's an amazing mom and our kids have our best qualities. We have fun all the time. I think she was a Bridezilla not because she was a crazy person. It was more about making the moment right for everyone and making it a great memory. She had a relatively rough life with her parents and there weren't a ton of great memories. I notice she goes way out of her way to make great memories for the kids as she's always planning stuff for us to do with them. I'm gonna keep her. Divorce. My army buddies said they could see it coming. I'm easygoing, enjoy almost everything, and she was upset after what looked like a perfect wedding. She later said she wanted a smaller wedding. I don't talk to her or read emails and texts from her. Full of anger and spite, and I tell her so usually in a reply. Last year her tax return was deposited in my bank account, and I contacted her to ask for account details so I could transfer it to her. I got a 3-page email about how, if I spent anything she would have lawyers go after me. So I mailed a check to her, the slowest way possible. Married a Bridezilla. In the 18 months we were married, she was such an unfit mother, too many instances to list here, that when the divorce was finalized, I got custody of our kid and the kid she had prior to our marriage. Also, she was a blackout drunk, and cheated on me with several different men. Final straw was when I had to travel out of state to check on my grandmother. I came back a day early, saw used Marlboros in the ashtray, not her brand. I don't smoke, and then I heard grunting and groaning in the bedroom. Yep, there she was. And there he was. And there he was. Devil's triangle. Contacted a divorce lawyer the next day, finalized it as fast as possible. My sister's mom was a maidzilla. Didn't know that was a thing until it happened. My sister's a pretty laid-back person, but her best friend was a perfectionist and felt the need to push everyone else's feelings aside, including the bride, to make sure it would go exactly the way she envisioned. My sister eventually couldn't take the unnecessary stress of her planning anymore and politely kicked her out of the wedding party about a month before ceremony. She replaced her with someone else almost as close, but way more relaxed and compatible with my sister socially. Didn't marry her. Couldn't be happier. I mean, it only ended because she was a lying, cheating piece of trash person, but all the wedding planning stuff was its own special hell. demanding the most expensive place, the most expensive photographer, fancy cars etc to the ceremony, all of which we couldn't afford, and that cost me all of my savings and nothing but deposits. I didn't realize how unhappy I was in that relationship till I was out of it. Now I'm with someone who is simply amazing and makes me super happy. Do you mean off the TV show, or just in general? My wife totally took over our wedding plans, but to be fair I just left her to it. I could see how much her perfect day meant, and to be honest there was very little I would have changed anyway. We have very similar tastes. 17 years on we have discussed it, and she genuinely thought we had come to joint decisions over everything. I pointed out she booked a band and DJ from a magazine, even though I worked for an entertainment agency and knew some much better artists, and it kind of hit home. We agreed that for our 20th anniversary we would arrange a celebration together. At the end of the day it is the celebration and the people that make a day special. If you get that right, the details are not important.